Oh, God. The Oscars. Boring. But if you're willing to risk arthritis in your scrolling finger, there are interesting things happening in the world beyond the tediousness of celebrity backslapping. Right, I want you to keep in mind that we live in an age of censorship. So, let's have a quiz. Link below. The appeal came after a retired police officer came forward with allegations in a 1992 trial featuring a brothel keeper had been dropped at the last minute when she threatened to expose Sir Edward as one of her clients. The Independent Police Complaints Commission launched a probe into the claims, but it was subsequently established that the trial had actually been dropped because two of the prosecution witnesses refused to give evidence. No, this isn't a debunking by Snopes, even if it is typical of Snopes' style, and indeed typical of all debunking. As an aside, of all the Americanisms creeping into the language, I loathe debunk and debunking the most. Let's have a quick look at where it comes from, link below. First used by US novelist William Woodward, the notion being to take the bunk out of things. And what is bunk? Bunkum is American English for nonsense. That the Telegraph article should continue thus, despite the cover-up claims being debunked, which brings me back to the quiz. In what sense is the IPCC finding the prosecution of the brothel keeper being dropped because witnesses refusing to testify a debunking, i.e. removing of the nonsense from the claim that the trial was dropped because the madam threatened to expose Edward Heath, who was at the time MP for Old Bexley and Sidcup? I presume this brothel keeper was Madam Ling Ling, link below, and interestingly the Sun's article mentions the dossiers kept by Barbara Castle and Geoffrey Dickens. Those following events will know that the Geoffrey Dickens dossier, Bunny Ears went missing, close bunny ears, and was last heard of when Scotland Yard went searching for it in the Bodleian Library in Oxford, link below. The story of the Castle dossier is rather more complicated, involving threats and D-notices, link below, which, if one believes it, makes the hashtag debunking of the Madam Ling Ling cover-up look like, well, part of a cover-up. But back to the story. Last week you will recall that the Sunday headlines had Mike Veal, Chief Constable of Wiltshire, a 120% certain that Edward Heath was a pedo, link below. And you will also recall that Mr. Veal had debunked the claims that Edward Heath was involved in satanic abuse. The following day, the same papers who promoted the story of pedo sailor Ted had rebunked the story by printing daft claims by unnamed women that Ted Heath was involved in satanic abuse, and also that their parents were involved in the devil worshipping. And now it turns out that the detective leading the inquiry has gone on sick leave for stress, and apparently the inquiry is stalled and the report will never reveal its findings, and, well, etc., etc., because we've heard it all before. I find two things interesting about this latest twist. The first is that Superintendent Sean Memory went on sick leave last month, which makes it all the more odd that the Telegraph should go back to claiming that the report will never be published because Superintendent Memory has gone on the sick, when 3 weeks after he went on the sick, his Chief Constable, Mr. Veal, said that he would be publishing the report in June. The second twist relates to this weekend's revelation that the German Secret Service had been spying on, among others, the BBC, link below. For those aware of the allegations by Michael Shrimpton, you will know that he claims Silly Billy Ted Heath was murdering kids on his yacht with the assistance of the German Secret Service. Therefore, my spidey sense rather tingles that a week on from Mr. Veal's statement that he's 120% certain Ted Heath was a pedo, a spy story breaks, and suddenly it's back to rebunking, or is it debunking, the story that Ted Heath was a nonce. At which point it is only fair to point to the interview Esther Baker gave on the Richie Allen show, link below, which highlights many of the sensitivities and the political shenanigans surrounding this issue.